The sky was overcast the day we buried Liam, the kind of gray that presses against your chest, daring you to breathe without breaking. I remember holding onto the edges of my coat tighter than I needed to, hoping it would hold me together better than I was managing on my own. The leaves rustled above us, whispering apologies that my own family never gave. I kept scanning the cemetery gate like a fool, expecting to see their cars pulling in, my mother, father, my sister Emily, my 2 brothers. But there were none, only a few friends from the hospital, some of Liam's classmates, and my closest friend, Daniel, who had flown in the night before. The priest asked gently, "Shall we begin?" I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. Liam was 17. Just 17. He had a laugh that could cut through the thickest fog of sadness and a heart that carried more kindness than most adults I knew. He'd been sick for 2 years, cancer. It started in his bones and spread like wildfire. He fought. God, he fought. There were days he smiled at me just to keep me from crying, even as his body was crumbling beneath him. I had taken time off work, sold the car, drained every savings account, just to make him comfortable, not to save him. We had already made peace with that, but to make him comfortable, to give him dignity. And yet, in the end, we stood there with barely a dozen people, the only family Liam truly had left, standing 6 feet above his resting place. The priest's voice droned on, but my mind was somewhere else, somewhere colder. It was on the words Emily had texted me 2 days before. "Hey, sorry we can't make the service. It's the same weekend as our engagement party. We've already booked everything. Hope you understand." No, Emily. I didn't understand. That same night, my parents had sent me a photo of themselves dressed to the nines, smiling beneath golden streamers, holding flutes of champagne with Emily and her fiancé. Say, Mark. The caption read, "Our baby girl is finally getting married." I stared at that message on my phone while sitting beside Liam's hospice bed, where his skin was ashen and his breath sounded like the scraping of gravel under boots. I wanted to scream, to throw the phone, to shatter something, but I didn't. I held his hand. He didn't need to know they weren't coming. I lied and told him Grandma was sick, and Emily had a work emergency. Liam was too tired to care. He just smiled faintly and said, "It's okay, Mom. We're here. God." He died less than 12 hours later, quietly, without drama, just like he lived. The boy who never asked for more than he needed and who forgave people far too easily. After the service, I stood at his grave long after everyone had left. My heels were sinking into the wet earth, but I didn't care. The funeral flowers looked cheap against the deep, solemn brown of fresh soil. I stared at his name etched into stone, the date far too soon. Liam James Carter, 2008, 2025, braver than most, kinder than all. I whispered, "They didn't even come. I'm so sorry, baby." My phone buzzed again. I was too drained to look, but curiosity won. It was a video, a live stream from Emily's engagement party. Laughter, dancing, cheers, a toast to the most magical couple. And then my father's voice rang out in the background. "This is a celebration of life, not the time to mope around about sad things." Sad things? My son's death was a sad thing to them. A minor inconvenience, a mood ruiner. That night, I turned my phone off. I unplugged the landline, I shut every window, and I let myself break in every way I couldn't when Liam was alive. I screamed into pillows, I threw plates, I clutched his hoodie to my chest like it could resurrect him. I cried until I was empty, then I slept for the first time in days. 3 days after the funeral, a letter arrived at my doorstep. It wasn't a condolence card. It was from my mother. Inside, printed on thick ivory paper, was an invitation to Emily and Mark's wedding, along with a handwritten note. "We know things have been difficult, but we'd like to honor Liam in a special way by making him part of Emily's big day. He wouldn't want his savings to go to waste. It's only right that some of that money help make the wedding unforgettable." I had to read it 3 times. I laughed because the pain was too big to hold alone. You see, Liam had life insurance. When his father passed away years ago, we took out a policy for Liam too, in case the worst happened. It did, and it left me with $850,000, money that was meant to rebuild a life after losing him, money I never wanted. Now they wanted it, for flower arches, imported champagne, a private orchestra, and Tiffany centerpieces. Not even for something sensible like a house or a future, a wedding, one night, one ridiculous, overdone, Instagram-worthy night. They hadn't even shown up to say goodbye, but they wanted his money, the audacity, the cruelty, the entitlement. That night, I sat in the silence of Liam's room, surrounded by the remnants of his life, posters, books, medals, unfinished notebooks, and I made a promise to him and to myself. 3 weeks passed. Grief does strange things to time. It slows everything down and speeds up your heartbeat all at once. Some days, I would wake up expecting to hear Liam's voice down the hall. Other days, I could barely breathe without thinking of that text. Hope you understand. I didn't return any calls. Not my parents, not my sisters, not anyone's from that side of the family. I needed silence. I needed the ache to speak without interruption. And for once in my life, I was going to let them feel what I had felt so many times, abandonment. But of course, the silence didn't last long. On the 25th day after Liam's funeral, I remember, because it was the day his favorite flowers bloomed in our garden, bright white lilies, I received a knock at the door. It wasn't a stranger, it was Emily. She looked radiant, not in the glowing, inner peace sort of way. Radiant in the performative, expensive makeup, designer sunglasses, dripping in privilege sort of way. I hadn't seen her in person since Liam was still well enough to run through sprinklers in the summer. That was nearly 2 years ago. "Hey, sis," she chirped as if she were popping in for coffee. I didn't say anything. I just stared. She peeked around me. "You look tired. You okay?" Was I okay? I stood aside without a word and let her walk into the house. She made herself comfortable in the living room, on Liam's old spot on the couch. She crossed her legs and said, "Look, I wanted to come sooner, but you know how hectic things have been. Between the party, the guest list, the catering, it's just been madness." I leaned against the doorway. My silence was louder than any words I could have spoken. "Anyway," she continued, flipping her hair, "Mom and Dad said you're still not answering anyone. They're worried about you." I almost laughed. Then came the real reason she was there. "So," she said, drawing out the word, "I know this is a little awkward, but we wanted to talk to you about Liam's insurance money." I clenched the door frame. "We just think it would be such a beautiful gesture, you know, honoring him during the wedding. Maybe a donation to a children's hospital in his name, on the wedding invitation, or something classy. Like that." I raised an eyebrow. She pressed on. "I mean, you did say it was $850,000, right? That's such a blessing, and I know Liam would want us to be happy. That did it." I walked slowly toward her, keeping my voice calm. "You think Liam would want to fund your champagne tower?" Emily blinked, a little caught off guard. "It's not like that. I mean, you're alone now. You don't need all that money and—" I interrupted her. "You skipped his funeral." Her face twitched. "It was bad timing. We already paid deposits. We couldn't just cancel everything. You could have come the next day. You could have come at all." "God, stop being so dramatic." She snapped, the mask slipping. "Liam's gone. We're all trying to move on. You're stuck." I took a deep breath, fighting every instinct to scream. "Instead," I said, "get out." "What?" I said, "Get out of my house. You're seriously going to act like this?" She stood, her voice rising. "Over money, I came here as your sister." "No," I said flatly. "You came here as a beggar in a wedding dress trying to rob my son's grave." She turned red from rage or shame, I wasn't sure. "Probably both. You know what? Fine, be selfish. Waste your life mourning a kid who's not even here. Meanwhile, the rest of us will keep living." I let the door slam behind her. That night the calls began again. First my father, "You're being cruel. Emily's wedding is the happiest moment of her life. You're punishing her for grieving differently." Then my mother, "You always wanted attention. Now you're using Liam's death to play victim. What's $850K compared to family?" Then my youngest brother, "Stop being so cold. This is about legacy. Liam would be honored." Every call made me nauseous. It wasn't grief that bothered them. It was inconvenience. It was that my silence had finally created a gap they couldn't manipulate. They didn't care when Liam lost his hair. They didn't call when his bones fractured from the inside out. They didn't even come when I begged them, begged to visit him one last time. But now they had wedding venues and Pinterest boards, and somehow my son's life insurance had become their open checkbook. A week later, I went to the bank. I moved every cent of that money into a new account under Liam's full name. Then I sat with a lawyer. I asked about setting up a scholarship fund, not a big flashy one, but something real. Something for kids like Liam, bright minds with bad luck, kids with dreams and no time. Then I met with a children's hospice and donated anonymously in Liam's memory, enough to build a new wing in a rural town where care was underfunded. Every dollar was accounted for. Every cent was spoken for before they could touch it, but I wasn't done. The invitations arrived a week later, white with gold trim, the kind that screams wealth even before you open the envelope. I was invited, of course, family. They even wrote, "Formal attire, bring your joy." I laughed when I read it. And that night, I made one more appointment with a videographer, not to make a wedding video. To make something far more lasting. The day of the wedding arrived with golden skies, the kind they'd prayed for. The estate they rented was a colonial monster tucked into the hills, dripping with chandeliers and shallow elegance. There were white roses climbing every arch, glass orbs floating in fountains, a live quartet playing Vivaldi under a silk tent, and a drone buzzing overhead, capturing every perfect detail for social media. It was a wedding designed to be envied. The guest list was extensive: socialites, business partners, distant relatives dressed in pearls and rented designer suits. They all smiled like nothing had ever been lost. I arrived 15 minutes before the ceremony began. The ushers hesitated when they saw me. I wasn't wearing black. I wasn't wearing gray. I wore deep crimson, Liam's favorite color. I walked in alone without a plus one, holding nothing but a small, flat black box. People stared, not in welcome, but in confusion. I didn't care. Emily didn't spot me right away. She was inside the bridal suite, according to the whispers. The guests were herded into a courtyard with pristine white chairs lined up like obedient soldiers. At the front stood a crystal podium where the officiant waited, holding a small book and a polished smile. Mark stood at the altar, jittery, proud, clueless. The music swelled. Then she appeared, Emily. Her dress sparkled with 1,000 crystals that caught the light in a million tiny lies. She walked down the aisle like she was entering a movie set. Every camera caught her from a perfect angle. Every face turned toward her. Every face except mine. I didn't clap. I didn't smile. I didn't stand. I waited. After the vows, as the officiant began to say the ceremonial lines, "If anyone objects," he paused only briefly. No one spoke until I stood up. A murmur rolled through the crowd like a rising tide. The officiant looked confused. Emily's mouth dropped. She blinked like she'd seen a ghost. "Excuse me," I said, my voice calm but firm. "Before this wedding continues, I'd like to offer a gift, one that was promised." The guests shifted uncomfortably. Emily hissed from the altar, "What are you doing?" I walked slowly toward the front, ignoring the way security began to whisper into earpieces. I opened the black box I'd brought. Inside was a single envelope, white, heavy, embossed with gold ink. I handed it to the officiant. "It's a letter from Liam." Gasps, whispers. Aunt Margaret audibly said, "Oh my God." The officiant opened it. Would you like me to read this aloud? Yes. Emily tried to protest, but it was too late. The guests were hungry for drama now. Eyes widened, cameras lifted. Even Mark looked unsure now. The officiant cleared his throat and read, "To my family, or at least the ones who remember me. If you're hearing this, I'm probably gone, but that's okay. I knew it was coming. Mom always said the people who leave early are the ones the world doesn't deserve. I wanted to say thank you to the people who held my hand, who stayed when things got hard, who showed up. For those who didn't, don't worry. I didn't expect you to." But if this is being read at Emily's wedding, it's probably because someone wanted to use my name to fund their big day. So here's my gift. I gave everything away before you could take it. My money went to kids like me, the ones who don't get weddings, or birthdays, or even high school, the ones who don't get one more Christmas. But I did ask Mom for one last thing, if she ever found the strength to come here to this circus, to make sure you all heard me. So here it is. You didn't show up when I was dying. You didn't come to my funeral. You sent balloons and glitter and champagne while my lungs filled with blood. But I forgive you, I do, because I didn't need you then, and I don't need you now. You've all built a life of appearances. I hope it keeps you warm when the real moments pass you by. Love always, even when it wasn't returned. Liam. Silence. Complete and total, no music, no laughter. Just stunned, suffocating silence. Emily's face turned from white to red to a shade I can only describe as fury, laced shame. She tried to speak, but nothing came out. Mark looked at her, then at me, and then slowly stepped away from the altar. Just 2 steps, enough to make her shoulders slump. I turned to the crowd. There won't be a toast tonight, I said. But there was a legacy. I pulled a small remote from my pocket and pressed play. A projector behind the stage screen lit up. And there he was, Liam, alive, laughing, sitting on the porch in a hoodie, talking to my friend Daniel, who'd recorded him a month before he passed. I know I'm not going to make it to 18. That sucks. But Mom says I've lived more honestly than most people, twice my age. So if I'm gone and people are at some party pretending I didn't matter, I hope they know I see it, all of it. And I hope they know Mom's the strongest person I've ever met. She's got the kind of love you can't fake. Take care of her, okay? She deserves better than what she got. The video faded. I walked away before the applause could begin, not that I expected any. Outside, under a large oak tree, I stood alone. I could hear shouting inside, glass breaking. A faint echo of my mother's shrill voice trying to control the narrative. But it was over. I had said what needed to be said. I got in the car and drove, not home, to the cemetery.